The world promises you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for
greatness.
Greatness. A lot of you have heard that quote before, right?
Yes.
What if I were to tell you that Pope Benedict didn't actually say that? You see, like 6 months ago, I was like, when did he say that? So I'm like searching online for hours, found nothing. He didn't actually say it. He said some things that were similar to it. So let's check out what he said. I just wrecked a lot of your worlds right there. I'm sorry.
Huge truth.
All right. Here's what he says. He says, the ways of the Lord are not easy. The ways of the Lord are not easy. All we have to do is look at the crucifix, right? But we were not created for an easy life, but for great things, for goodness. Isn't it the case that the way of the world is pretty easy? Everyone's doing it. You just do it too. Jesus totally goes against that in so many ways. Here's another thing he said that's pretty similar. Man was created for greatness, for God himself. He was created to be filled by God. But his heart is too small. His heart is too small for the greatness to which it is destined. It must be stretched. Our hearts are too small for the greatness to which we are destined. The greatness, the goodness being God himself. The story that we reflected on a couple of weeks ago, those of you who were here, the call of Simon Peter the fisherman. This is the story of a man who had his heart and his mind just blown open to the goodness, to the reality of Jesus Christ. Peter. So let's check out that story again. While the people pressed upon him, this is from Luke chapter 5. While the people pressed upon him to hear the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. He saw 2 boats by the lake, but the fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's, he asked him to put out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people from the boat. And when he had ceased speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." Jesus was a carpenter, remember? We talked about this a few weeks ago. He's telling a fisherman how to fish. So what's Peter's response? Simon answered, "Master, we toiled all night and took nothing. But at your word I will let down the nets." And when they had done this, they enclosed a great shoal of fish. And as their nets were breaking, they beckoned to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both the boats, so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For he was astonished, and all that were with him, at the catch of fish which they had taken. And so also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. Henceforth you will be catching men." And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him. When they brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him. Peter, the couple of times we hear about him fishing, is unsuccessful. He doesn't catch anything the night before here on his own. In John chapter 21, after the resurrection, Peter tells the apostles, "I'm going fishing." And they say, "We'll go with you." And they catch nothing. Until this mysterious man from the shore tells them where to fish, and then their nets are full again, okay? And they're like, "It's Jesus, amazing." And then Peter, it says, puts on his clothes because he was lightly clad for work, and he jumps in the water. I've never figured that one out. But what's the point? Without Jesus, Peter catches nothing. With Jesus, he catches a whole school of fish, so much so that their boats are sinking. While I was reading that this week, I was reminded of John chapter 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch of mine that bears no fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it may bear more fruit. You are already made clean by the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. It's only when Peter is with Jesus, listening to Jesus, in communion with Jesus, that he catches fish. I am the true vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. With Jesus, Peter catches an abundance of fish. But what totally blows my mind about that story of the call of Peter is not that he catches a lot of fish because Jesus helps him catch fish. I mean, that shouldn't shock us. I mean, he did create the world after all, you know. But he then invites Peter to leave everything. Do not be afraid, for you'll be catching men. Leave everything, follow me. And Peter does it. Think about that. With Jesus, Peter is abundantly fruitful. He was staring at boats that were sinking because he caught so many fish. He was like at the top of his game professionally, right? Like this was his whole livelihood. Money, power, it was all there. And then that last line, they left everything. He's staring right at it, right? Everything worldly he could ever want, right there. And he leaves everything to follow Jesus. That is a radical abandonment. That is a radical abandonment. To leave behind this great catch of fish for something greater, right? This stretching of Peter's heart for all the greatness that Jesus wanted to pour forth in him as his disciple. It reminds me of the line again from John chapter 15. Every branch of mine that bears no fruit, he takes away. That's not shocking either, is it? We can look at our own lives, parts of our lives that probably need to just be gone. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. What is pruning? Not prunes like the fruit. Is it a fruit? What's pruning?
Isn't it basically where you clip the tree in a way so that it can grow better and healthier?
Yeah. You actually clip down branches. Like I've pruned bushes basically down to the stump so that it can grow back bigger. If it gets too big and you never prune it, sometimes it kind of like dies. It just falls down. The branches get too heavy. Is that not like what happens to Peter? There's this fruitfulness, right? And then Jesus invites him to something more. In a way, Peter's being pruned. He's letting go. I was thinking about this story in light of my life. And a lot of you have heard my testimony before, or parts of it. When I was in junior high, my life, I don't know what happened to it. It just got crazy. I tried to become a goth. It didn't work. It was just awkward. We laugh about it now. I got into some pretty messed up friendships. I started dating some girls in high school, and those relationships were bad news. I think I've talked to all of you about being addicted to pornography. Every bad word in the book came out of my mouth. every vulgar sexual joke. I knew it. In terms of religion, I never stopped believing in God, but I think I would have fallen in the spiritual but not religious category. God was cool on my terms, but I wasn't about ready to submit to the teachings of the church. Even though I grew up Catholic in a Catholic family and went to Catholic school, to me, the church was just all rules. I think a lot of you could probably relate maybe to that experience or that feeling. It wasn't until I went to college that I had that breakthrough. Jesus had been knocking on the door of my heart, and for whatever reason, by the grace of God, on a Saturday morning in October, I said yes to Him. A day that totally changed my life. And it was interesting as I was reflecting on that experience this week in light of the story of the call of Simon Peter. Because what happened to me after that conversion experience, my life got pretty good. Like at the school I was at, God was blessing me with very fruitful prayer, an awesome priest that I started going to for confession. He was totally helping me walk with the Lord, changing my life. He gave me great friends to walk with on the path. I was getting pretty good grades, and I had a sweet scholarship. And I was like, yeah, this is good. But at the same time, there was this tug on my heart to transfer, to go to Franciscan University. And for 3 months, I just wrestled with this hardcore. It was like God was clearly inviting me to something more, to something greater, to step out in faith. And it was a big step out in faith because Franciscan gave me $3,000 of scholarships. That's not a lot when you're talking about college. So I'm wrestling with this, I'm going to go into debt. What am I doing? I'm going to go study theology? Who does that? What do you do with that? I'm just wrestling with this, but in the end, it was, are you going to cling to this stuff, these feelings, these comforts that are right here? Or are you willing to leave it all behind and come follow me? And that was a radical decision in February of 2005. When I put in my deposit to Franciscan University of Steubenville and decided that my life was going to take a different course. Because Jesus was calling me there. And we know, brothers and sisters, from the gospel, what's Peter's life look like? Up, down, even while he's following Jesus, right? He's a mess. Puts his foot in the mouth more than anyone else in the Bible, I think. Maybe. I don't know. That's a big claim. But he does it all the time. But in the end, is he not greater for having followed Jesus? Is he not greater for having left behind what was on the shore, whatever it was that he could have clung to as his comforts? He was greater because he allowed Jesus to do something profound in his life, to fill his life. And when I look back at the time that I spent at Franciscan, God totally rocked my world in terms of what I had left behind. He gave me an abundance of friends that called me to holiness. He gave me a spiritual director that I still have today, a priest that I can call any time of day, who will answer the phone and talk to me. He gave me the opportunity to study the truths of the Catholic Church and totally renew my mind. He gave me an opportunity to suffer together with brothers through my addiction. And he brought me to the place where he would introduce me to the girl who would become my wife. God's plans are always far bigger than what we think they are. The greatness that he calls us to is far bigger than we could ever imagine for ourselves. And my life is still a lot like Peter's. Up, down, up, down. But what matters, I think, is that I know he's Lord and Savior and I'm willing to follow him. And even when things are a mess, and I don't want to give it over to him, I still hear that call, that still small voice just inviting me to be loved, right? To abide with me, remain with me. About 3.5 years ago, this youth ministry program, look around, don't talk, just look around. There are a lot of people here. About 3.5 years ago, this youth ministry program experienced tremendous growth. Teens from really all around the city were experiencing a profound encounter with Jesus Christ. And then bringing their friends. And that's why you look around this church and there's so many people. At the same time, core team, these adults who are giving their time freely, just volunteering it, basically doubled in size. The stuff we were talking about, we were going deeper and deeper 3.5 years ago. And I was amazed by this catch of fish. Like, not that you're fish, but analogously. Okay. I was like truly amazed. Like, look at what God is doing here. This is ridiculous. It's a Sunday night in May. You should all be so stressed out about your homework you can't even be here. I shouldn't remind you about your homework. Here's the deal. We started inviting teens to encounter Jesus Christ. We simply started inviting teens to encounter Jesus Christ in a living way, through the Word, through the sacraments, through this community. And there was a lot of conversion. But what was really amazing is 3.5 years ago, the Lord started planting seeds, at least in my heart, and I know some of these core members' hearts, for something more. That there has to be more than even this. And this is pretty awesome. There has to be more than this. And I believe it was a call to discipleship. See, we're all pretty good at having one-time encounters with Jesus. When it feels really good to encounter Jesus. Like at a retreat or something like that. How many of us are living this life consistently, every day? Where you can say, at the end of the day, today I said yes to that call to follow him. Today I said yes to leaving everything behind. Probably not many hands would go up. Mine sure wouldn't. See, the one-time encounter, it's a good thing. Maybe every 6 months you need your Jesus fix because, man, I tried to live it and it just didn't work. It's hard. I've had a lot of conversations with you this year, a lot of you one-on-one, just about how hard it is to live this when you leave here on Sunday nights. See, Jesus calls us to an encounter that leads into discipleship, which means a following of him. Discipleship is actually a term for education. It means you become like a pupil or a student, but not just sitting in class, raising your hand every once in a while so you get your participation grade. Discipleship means following actively in an experiential way. In John's Gospel, chapter 1, John the Baptist says, "Behold the Lamb of God," and Jesus is moving. And you know what Andrew and John have to do to follow him? Move. They have to move to follow Jesus. See, discipleship is about an active following. It's something experiential. Another way to think about discipleship is apprenticeship. Apprenticeship. An example I like to use is, if I wanted to learn carpentry, which I would like to someday, I don't know much about it now, but watching YouTube is fine, but it's far from asking a carpenter to show me how to do something. I don't think that's hard to wrap your mind around, right? So if I was an apprentice of a master carpenter, I would just be following his every move, his every action. I'd be listening to everything he was saying. I would ask him questions, right? Active learning. That's what we're talking about with discipleship. The Jews, they have a saying that we need to be covered in the dust of our rabbi. What's that mean? That you're following so closely behind that the dust that's kicking up from Jesus' shoes is caking you. That's pretty close following, right? How many of us are doing that on a day-to-day basis? That's tough. But it doesn't mean that it's not possible. Discipleship is the way that Jesus chose to form the men that he would entrust the church to. Jesus spent a lot of time talking to big crowds, right? We know that he did that. He fed a lot of people. Free meals. Jesus. Just come to Jesus. All you need is a few loaves and a couple fish. Jesus. It's like fast food. 2,000 years ago. The Golden J. Jesus did large group ministry, right? Jesus also had powerful one-on-one encounters with people. Think of the woman at the well. Think of Zacchaeus up in the tree. Even this story with Simon Peter. Powerful one-on-one encounters. But the bulk of Jesus' time, Jesus' preferred way to do ministry, to teach people stuff, what was it? Discipleship. Discipleship. Following him closely. Being with him every moment of the day. So, much like Peter was invited by Christ to be pruned, to lay aside some things that he had taken comfort in, our youth ministry program is actually going to take a step like Peter. This is a step that is radical. This is a step that we've not taken before. This is a step away from what is comfortable and normal for us. Do I have your attention? Okay. What am I talking about? This summer, we're going to launch an intentional discipleship initiative unlike anything St. Gertrude's has ever seen, because we've never done anything like it. So, what do I mean when I'm talking about discipleship? I want to dig into it a little bit more. Discipleship is going to allow us to better meet the needs that you have. To better meet the needs that you have. What are the needs that you have? Here's what I perceive to be your needs. To belong, to be transparent, meaning to share and not worry about being judged right away. To be understood. To have people in the mess with you. To think critically. Because most of the world doesn't think. Because if we can't punch it into Google and get an answer like that, we're just done. We need to think critically. And finally, to be guided. Brothers and sisters, there are like 20 core team members here tonight who are here just for you. They don't have a dog in the fight. It doesn't matter if you get into the best college, if you earn a varsity letter. They're just here for you, just because you're you. And they're willing to walk with you and guide you when you need guidance. Those are some big needs that I think that you have. My hunch is you wouldn't disagree with me. Could be wrong. But what else have I heard this year? I had a teen come into my office and look me in the eyes and say, I don't know if you realize how hard it is to live this life when we leave here on Sunday nights. It sounds good when we're here. But when we go out, it's hard. I've had teens this year come up to me and say, I don't know how to pray. Or I stopped praying and my life is miserable, but I don't know how to start again. I've had teens come up to me this year and say, I don't know how to get out of this mess or that addiction. Brothers and sisters, we have real needs that we really need to start dealing with. And our dealing with it means letting Jesus deal with it. And we carry each other, we bring each other like the friends brought the paralytic to Jesus so that he can heal us, so that he can change our lives, so that he can stretch us and give us more. That's what these discipleship groups are going to be all about. So this summer we're going to start getting you into groups of about 8 or 9. And again, it's an invitation, right? So you don't have to do it. But we're jumping in. Groups of 8 or 9, and they're going to be 2 adults, a core member and another adult, generally a young adult. For the past 6 months, this has been 3.5 years in the making, but for the past 6 months, we've been doing a ton of behind-the-scenes work that a lot of you haven't even known about. We've doubled the size of core team. There are 20 other people who want to be with you that you've not even met yet. They're not here tonight either, which is why you can't see them. And there are more who keep coming. The seminary wants to partner with us on this project. Next year we're going to have 4 seminarians helping lead some of the men's groups. We've been talking to some of your parents, sharing this vision that we have. Because this is going to allow us to better walk with your parents and partner with them so we can help you. So we can walk with you. So you're going to be in groups, if you want to, of 8 or 9 teens, 2 co-leads. They're going to be single-sex groups. And the initial commitment is simply 6 weeks, or 6 sessions, because over the summer, we know that vacations are going to screw this up a little bit, right? 6 sessions. You're going to meet approximately 3 times a month for about 2 hours each time. And these are going to become a place where authentic friendships will be forged. Maybe friendships that none of you have experienced before. Maybe friendships that only a few of you have had. A place where you're loved and respected, where you can bring your biggest questions to the table, and you can help keep each other accountable. This isn't something we just drew up on our own. We're partnering with the Augustine Institute in Denver and their youth ministry program called YDisciple. The letter Y, not the word. Y stands for youth. Clever, huh? Okay. So YDisciple. And YDisciple has had success nationally in getting small groups together. They've seen teens come to have radical conversions. They've seen teens find their vocations and just experience the peace of knowing Jesus and walking with Him every day. We've had our own success, though many of you probably don't even know about it, with YDisciple. A few months ago, we started 3 YDisciple cells. 3 of them. And they've been meeting now for the last 2 months or so. So some of your peers are actually already doing this. And I was talking to one of the guys who's in a YDisciple group, and I asked him to give me just a little testimony, and here's what he had to say. YDisciple has made a positive impact on me, and I can't wait to keep it going and see where it takes me. YDisciple has shown me a deeper relationship in my faith with Jesus Christ, and I am able to share it with my peers, which makes things that much better. Having this small group has been comforting, the sense of relief that others are there to grow with me and have my back. Discussing the videos is great. So YDisciple is like video-driven content that raises big questions for you, and then you can sit and discuss them together. Discussing the videos was great as well because I was able to listen to others' way of thinking, and most of the time it related to me, and it was something that I had to check on myself and work to fix in my own life. YDisciple has given me a deeper relationship with my friends and has made them people that I would trust with anything. I recommend taking part in getting the best out of YDisciple, not only for your own growth and maturity, but for the gift that you can offer to each member of the group that you're in. So, this summer we're going to launch as many of these cells as we possibly can. We're calling them cells because in biology, cells either collapse in on themselves and die, which is what we don't want to do. Or they divide and grow, right? So this becomes an opportunity for you to invite your friends from school or whatever into the cell and grow it. We're taking our ministry, in part, not entirely, out from the parish into homes. So you're going to start meeting in homes for youth group. Not all the time, but sometimes. And like I said, we're going to start as many of these as we can over the summer. As many as we can means that not all of you are going to be in one in the summer. Why is that? Well, we're trying to take to prayer who should be in what groups and when to start the groups. We're also taking into consideration core team's availability and the fact that I need to keep recruiting even more people because there are so many of you, and that's awesome. So we just legitimately don't have enough adults to run all of the cells yet, but we will in the fall. Okay? So if you don't get an invitation like right away, and keep in mind that we're trying to keep friend groups together, okay? We're just going to let grace build on top of what nature has already done. So if you don't get an invitation right away, don't panic. It's okay. It's not like we don't like you or anything like that. But God has a plan for this, and we're just trying to follow Him, okay? And if you're really worried about it, talk to me. I'm going to be available the rest of the night. Now, you might be wondering what this means for current youth ministry, right? Are any of you asking that question? Well, we all have limited time, and we have limited time, right? We can't do all of this. So the question I've been wrestling with is, what's going to make this youth ministry experience the most fruitful for you? What's going to make your youth ministry experience in high school the most fruitful? And the answer to that is going deep with a group of your peers and two adults who care about you for being you. At the same time, it's important that we meet here as this community and grow together. So we're trying to strike a balance between them, all right? So all of our big events, our retreats, conferences, trips, stuff like that, is still going to go on like usual. We're still going to have youth nights. We just won't have quite as many of them to allow more time for your YDisciple cells to meet, okay? So you don't have to like totally freak out. You can freak out a little, not totally. So we really are trying to find a balance here, but to keep in mind what's going to be most fruitful with you and for you. All right. In the end, Peter leaves behind what's comfortable. Peter leaves behind what's comfortable and enters into this adventure of following Jesus that he had no idea how it was going to turn out. But he trusted in Jesus, and he was willing to let it go and to be stretched, to let his heart be stretched to receive what God had for him. Man was created for greatness for God himself. He was created to be filled by God, but his heart is so small. It's too small for the greatness to which he is destined. It must be stretched. Next year's theme captures those words from Pope Benedict. Look at your blue card. You probably put it together by now. You'll have a sweet t-shirt next year. Our theme for next year, I don't know if we've ever had a more fitting theme. that totally captures the whole movement of this youth ministry program and what your encounter with Christ is calling us to. I'm going to repeat that. What your encounter with Christ is calling us to. Because Jesus has more for you and for me and for this community. Because you're growing, we have to grow with you. Thanks a lot. This is awesome. And we're gonna follow Peter. And we're inviting you to follow us as we set out on an adventure and a messy process that we don't even know what it's going to look like entirely. And we're going to give the rest of this night over to Mary. We're going to give actually our entire youth ministry program over to Mary tonight.